chapter 143 to 144. Same time, in Alabasta, the doctors were in disbelief. "Nurse, am I the only one seeing this?" the doctor asked, as the nurses shook their heads with wide mouths. "The bones that entered his organs, they are coming out of his body by themselves. If that's not a miracle, then what is?" The doctors sighed in relief. This was good. It meant there was a chance for Amon to survive, meaning they won't be executed. Meanwhile, Amon laid down with his eyes closed, fully concentrating on cleaning his body. Exactly 12 hours later, in the morning, Rocky managed to reach Alabasta from Gran Tesoro. That was in the New World at that time. Instantly after arriving here, she tried to break into the palace. The guards didn't recognize her and stopped her aggressively. But before something cliché could have happened, the commander of the royal guards, Falcon Dude, noticed her and guided her to a luxurious room with 2 guards standing at the door. Just as Rocky was about to run inside through the door with short motor, the guards blocked their path by crossing their spears. "Please wait here. Nobody is supposed to go inside without permission," the guards said as they glanced at Pell the Falcon, who had a frown on his face. "Not even you, sir. Princess Vivi is inside since the prince just woke up a while ago. She is feeding him breakfast and asked to make sure that no one will disturb them." Reiki snapped, hearing him as she grabbed the guard by his collar. "You fucking idiot! Do you know who you are stopping? Want me to massacre your whole family and the next generations? Control yourself!" The guard tried to retort, but Rocky yelled, "Shut up!" The guard's face paled from the killing intent he was feeling. He wanted to move and let her go inside now, but he was too scared to even move. But mistaking this as a form of oppression, Rocky grabbed her sword and swung it towards his neck. However, as the sword was about to separate the man's neck, a blood-red shield with royalish features popped up out of nowhere and blocked Rocky's sword. Rocky frowned as the sword only halfway cut the shield, making sand fall from the cut. "Calm down, sister-in-law," a young feminine voice said. Turning her head around, Rocky looked at the culprit with wide eyes. It was Vivi. She used her sand to form a blood-red shield between the two. Her fruit allowed granting color to her creations, like how Crocodile formed steel-colored blades using his sand. With sweat dripping down her cheek, Rocky kept looking at Vivi with wide eyes. It wasn't her strongest attack, but to block it meant... Pfft. Reiki laughed before grinning and putting her sword back to her scabbard. "You are not a weakling anymore, huh?" She licked her lips. "Good girl." Vivi didn't react and turned around. She glanced at Rocky from the corner of her eyes and said, "A small piece of advice. Don't start fighting without talking things out first. Anyway, follow me if you want to see your brother." While looking at her back with a grin on her face but indifferent gaze within her eyes, Rocky followed behind her, along with short motor. The room was very rich, with many gorgeous furniture around. There were paintings stuck in the walls, and on the middle wall of the room, there was a massive clock. Below the clock was a bed that could take a full family of 4. Instantly, as Rocky entered the room, all her indifference disappeared in thin air as her eyes grew up after her gaze landed on the person laying on the bed. It was a person covered in bandages. It was Amon. He was staring at the ceiling while one of his legs was raised upwards by more bandages tied to a stand. Although, other than his mouth and eyes, his face was also mostly covered by bandages, his blood-red eyes filled with ambitions were enough for Rocky to recognize who he was. She instantly ran past Vivi and stood beside Amon. "Bro, is that you? Are you dead?" Amon, averting his gaze to her face, was at loss for words seeing how dumb her question was. He spoke barely in a still voice. "I am not dead, crazy female." Oh, good then." Reiki breathed a sigh of relief and was about to hug him tightly. "Oh, brother, I was so worried." However, a pair of hands popped up from the ground and stopped her from hugging him. "Calm down." Vivi's voice interrupted her as walked close towards the two of them and sat down on a chair beside Amon, on the opposite side of the bed, than Raki. "Can't you see his injuries? You will hurt him by hugging him, you brute." A frown appeared on Raki's face as she looked at her scornfully. "Little bitch, aren't you 14? Didn't your mother teach you how to speak to your elders? Oops, I forgot she died young, right? How sad." Vivi's face darkened, but she didn't say anything. She just picked up a bowl from the side box of the bed and started to the food in the bowl. It was chicken soup, the doctor said. Amon should eat this until he gets better. Vivi completely ignored Reiki and thought of the doctor's words. Doc said he will be fine in 4 months, though hubby says he will be able to walk in 2 more weeks. She grabbed the spoon and raised it toward Amon's face. "Hubby, say ah. Ah, nom. Fuck, this tastes shit. Hubby, I get it, but you have to eat to get healed quickly." "Mm-hmm." Reiki stared at the scene with deadpan eyes. Before sighing, she was worrying too much. He was injured, sure, but he had received similar injuries 2 more times in the past 4 years. The first was just 3 months after reaching the moon. Amon had underestimated the aliens and received compensation based on his actions. The second was 3 years after reaching the moon. That was horrific. Reiki didn't want to recall that incident and rather shifted her attention to Amon. "Brother," she made a serious face. "Who did this? I will kill him. So tell me." Amon, who opened his mouth to take in another spoonful, closed his mouth. He didn't want to say it to Rocky yet when he can't move, or the stubborn girl will definitely get herself killed. Before Amon was forced to lie, another presence entered the room, rendering Amon to sigh in relief. "Rocky, don't even think about it. Your brother lost. You are weaker than him." It was Robin who placed her hands on Rocky's shoulders, while frowning sharply. "It is a person out of your reach, weak girl." Robin, who was out and talking with the doctor the whole time, reached this place only to find the 2 girls quarreling among themselves. In Onigashima, Kaido was sitting on his butt while gulping booze. "Gah! That was a great fight." With a small grin on his face, Kaido laughed. "Wororo! Even though that kid only defended the whole time, he somehow managed to injure me in the eye at the end." Kaido laughed while King, who was standing beside him, looked at his right eye. There was a missing eyeball in the socket. King said, "Kaido-sama, you aren't supposed to be happy after losing an eye." He just sighed, seeing Kaido didn't care about his statement. "Are you sure you don't need an eye patch, though? You might fright the other members of the Beast Pirates." Kaido didn't respond to him instantly and rather took a mouthful of booze. "King, I don't want to hide my scars. My scars are my pride. Hiding them would make me a coward. I don't do that." "Wororo!" Kaido said while tears fell from his left eye like a fountain. Suddenly, coming out of his comical phase, Kaido asked the king, "Oh, that's right. What happened to Yamato? She seemed sad the last time I saw her. She didn't even come to meet me after I returned. What a bad kid." Hearing Kaido, the aura around King's body stiffened. "Kaido-sama, Yamato-sama says he would train with you. He wants to become strong. Strong enough to hunt down the culprit by himself and get the diary back." Kaido's single eye widened in disbelief before he laughed out loud. "Wororo! Finally! Finally! That brat Yamato is finally acting like he should, like my son." Kaido was more than happy. Yamato is the most talented individual he knew, even more talented than the kids of Big Mom. If someone like her trained diligently under him, the strongest creature, then only God knew how far she would reach. A person who learned advanced conqueror's haki just by imitating her father, a person with such talent. What will happen when she stands against Amon after receiving training from her father? Yamato Pov. All my life, I've opposed my father. But now, I have chosen to train under him. Why am I doing all this? To get my diary back. I am stubborn, but I know my old man is strong. I only respect Odin because he has managed to injure my father, and the protector of the Spade Pirates is also strong enough to harm him. I need strength if I want to get the diary back. I am Odin. I shall protect this country. This country's enemy is him, Kaido, my father. Still, to prove my identity to the people who will arrive 4 years later, I need that diary. So until I get that back, I will train under my enemy. Yamato! Bam! Suddenly a tail hit me in the face as I was flown meters back. Kwa! I coughed out blood as my back hit the ground. Yamato, you are a disgrace as my son! My father, the one who had put a collar around my neck, shouted, Remember, I will only train you until you can remove that collar by yourself, so pay attention. I don't think it would take much time. You should try to absorb my teachings as much as you can. Feeling the itching on my neck, I clenched my teeth and stood up slowly. Yes, father. Meanwhile, in the Skypea, the news of Amon getting deadly injured had already arrived. While some people were gossiping how this was a disgrace, with some defending saying Amon, their god, is still young, Wiper was eating his food in a corner of a super-large restaurant. A guy who was defending Amon looked at his friends and said, Look, we all saw how strong he was 5 years ago in that training thingy he did. Now, after 5 more years, he is definitely stronger. To have him defeated, the enemy must be very strong. He even beat a Marine Admiral, so the only people who can beat him are the Emperors. Actually, that makes sense. The other party nodded in agreement. This was the defending party. However, there were those who didn't care about how strong he was and only cared about his defeat. They were the ones who held some kind of grudge against Amon and his ruling. Amon has stopped the selling of many kinds of drugs and other things that endangers a person's life. The ones who were heavy depend upon them thought Amon has taken their privilege. I mean, he did lose, meaning he is weaker than the winner. I wonder how the Birkins are reacting to it. A Skypiean at a table beside Wipers said to his friends, It's interesting, they Birkins do worship him like a real god because of his strength, don't they? So does this mean some of them would now convert and worship the man who defeated him? Pfft, as if. They were talking freely as if God won't hear them, and truly, they were right. Being in Alabasta, the omniscient Amon couldn't hear them. They were relieved knowing this. This is how the world works. Even though most would go with the flow and most would take Amon as God, there will be these kinds of people who will talk bad behind his back for sure. They were the trash of every society. They existed even in this one. Wiper, who was eating ramen on a table in the corner, stopped eating and glared at the people who were gossiping. Fools! He just scoffed at them and went back to eating. The Birkins would never leave him. They are as loyal as dogs. Amon may not have godly powers, but he has the quality of any other god in the 1,000 myths of this world. He has loyal devotees, but this doesn't interest me at all. Wiper thought. What interests me most is, who did he lose to? How can a person like him even lose? Wiper was very confused. To him, Amon was invincible. It didn't seem possible to him that anyone could win against Amon. He believed, if there is a god in this world, it is him. Nonetheless, this incident only worked to spark the fire within him. Wiper knew, since Amon wasn't the strongest yet, he would surely try to be the strongest. Wiper can't lose to him at that. I first need a way to break my bottleneck. No matter how hard I try, I can't break the bottleneck I am facing. After that, I will give more attention to hockey. Wiper thought. Although Wiper didn't know himself, it was time for an awakening of his devil fruit. As Wiper went back to eating, his veins popped up. That woman, Issa, she left for Alabasta to look after Amon, lucky bastard. Without knowing how to cook, I am forced to eat here. Wiper could have simply asked another person to cook for him, and they wouldn't have refused. But his pride didn't allow such a thing. Meanwhile, while gossip was happening on the same topic in Shandora, many meters underground, in the Shandora Hall, a computer screen was shining. This was the place that was destroyed 5 years ago, however. It looked nowhere near something that was destroyed once. It looked all new, as if made just yesterday. The AI, Seraph, was thinking while listening to the whispers of people above the ground. Amon, that child has grown a lot. He defeated a Marine admiral who, if I am right, should be one of the highest-ranking officers of the government. Seraph thought, as she felt a little strange seeing the guy who almost destroyed her last time achieve such powers. But it seems he understands he isn't the strongest person in this world yet. He lost after all. Seraph concluded something. I should submit myself to him soon. I am 4 millennia old. I shouldn't hold a grudge like a child. In fact, when the cause was an actual 14-year-old child. But she was concerned about one thing. That kid, if he is as stubborn as before, he might not come to see me at all. In that case, I need to do something to attract his attention. Though Seraph won't get to try something to attract his attention, to begin with. After all, Amon's next goal is herself. Seraph, the artificial intelligence. He never forgot about the mythical Zoan she has with her. That's something he needs no matter what. If Amon's guess is correct, it is something that is similar to Kaido's fruit, a devastating Zoan a week later. In the Macurine kingdom located in New World, Otama was sitting on her butt while hugging her legs and looking at the sky. She was silent, but she wasn't crying. Her tears were dried up. You lied to me. Bad, mister. Meanwhile, in the paradise side of the New World, an island was floating in the sea. It was located in the Calm Belt. It was the Amazon Lily. Inside a castle located within the island, the castle of the Empress, Boa Hancock, the most beautiful woman in the world, who was sitting at the dinner table with her sisters and the oldest lady on the island, Gloriosa. Hancock! Gloriosa shouted, now eating her food. Even though this is a serious matter, you are eating without a care in the world. Hearing her, Hancock, who was eating steak, stopped eating and placed her fork and knife on the table. She tilted her head lightly and asked in an arrogant tone, What is it that you want from me? You should be grateful that I allowed you to eat here tonight. Gloriosa fumed hearing her. I don't want to eat here, girl, and don't act like you don't know. Last 2 months, we have been attacked 13 times by the Marines. This only meant Marines have discovered a way to invade the Calm Belt. Gloriosa continued. For years, we were safe. No Navy attacked us. It is obviously because of the Calm Belt. Now that they have found a way to bypass it, don't you understand how serious this is? Bypassing the Calm Belt. The Marines only found out about this technique in the year 1522 canon, but because of some changes Amon made, they discovered it 2 years before that, now. However, it wasn't because they didn't have a way through the Calm Belt that they didn't attack them up until now. It was because of Amon's deal with the Elders 5 years ago, because he demanded for Boa Hancock and her island to stay out of their radar. However, Amon is a criminal now. There is no reason to listen to his claims that was from 5 years ago. So they would surely capture Boa Hancock, a wanted criminal this time, though there was a more profound reason behind their actions. If that foxy brat wanted us to leave the pirate empress out of our radar, it only meant one thing. He wants her safe. So, this is a perfect opportunity to capture her and use her against him, isn't it? This was the Elders' thought process before deciding to attack the Amazon Lily. And if Amon, who has the WG in his palms, asks why they attacked Hancock, even though he asked them not to 5 years ago, they would just say he didn't include this in his new demands a few months ago and say, "We assumed you didn't care for them anymore." Their plan seemed foolproof. Only one thing was missing. Yes, and what? Boa Hancock looked at Gloriosa with disdain. The Navy is attacking us, so does that ever matter at all? We are strong. I am strong. I won't be scared of a group consisting of men, would I? Boa Hancock was a feminist with the power to back her words up. She was simply too strong for the Navy to capture her without an admiral, who they refused to use here because of their assumptions only. You girl! You are too arrogant. I have said many times before, don't underestimate the Navy. After a minute of fuming that was ignored by Hancock, the old woman sighed. What I am saying is simple. Join the warlord system. Boa Hancock, who was munching on a piece of meat, spat. No way, she continued. I never received an offer from the Navy in the past 5 years, and being forced by you, I even applied for it once by myself, but they didn't accept it for some reason. What makes you think I, Pirate Empress Boa Hancock, will lower my head to them for them a second time? Hancock didn't know that the Navy never accepted her offer because of Amon's condition, and she would never know. Because of this, she would only bear hate for the government because of this. The old woman frowned. Then join the side of an emperor. Try to understand, girl, this is serious. The Navy hasn't been attacking us ever since 5 years ago. Your bounty was also not increasing the past 5 years, no matter what you did. But suddenly they made it 700 million 2 months ago. Do you know what this means? Just as she said, Hancock's bounty that was stopped because of Amon's words was suddenly upped up to 700 million bellies a month ago. The woman continued. This means they are finally seeing us as a threat. We need the protection of a faction girl. Hancock just raised her head in the air to look down on her. I am strong enough by myself. I don't need protection from anyone. Besides, 4 of the 5 emperors are men, and we already rejected Big Mom once. I don't want to look desperate by asking her after I rejected her. Big Mom had offered her to join the Big Mom Pirates once before, but being arrogant, Hancock rejected her offer, so no way she would ask back shamelessly. If anything really does happen, I will... She stopped midway and sighed. Anyways, let's not talk about this anymore. Hancock got up from the table with an expressionless face. She clapped her hand as 2 maids entered the room gracefully. Hancock ordered, "Throw the food away. I lost my appetite." Meanwhile, in the Marineford in the office of Fleet Admiral, Sengoku was sitting in front of his friend and colleague, Tsuru. Tsuru is an old woman at an age similar to Garp. She joined the Marines at the same time as Garp and Sengoku, so they share a close relationship. Looking at her reading the paper in her hand, Sengoku opened his mouth. I am sure you understand by now. Tsuru nodded and put the papers down. Sengoku continued with a serious face. You need to go to Amazon Lily and hunt down Boa Hancock, the Pirate Empress, and her Kuja pirates. I understand, Tsuru replied. Sengoku sighed and continued. The higher-ups chose you since you and your whole fleet is full of girls. You have a lot more chance against Pirate Empress's power than the male vice-admirals, even considering the fact that both genders are affected by her beauty. Hearing him, Tsuru opened her mouth with a glint of suspicion in her old eyes. Why do I feel like there is more chemistry behind this? To choose me and my whole fleet to go after a single pirate crew? There is something important about that girl, isn't there? Hearing her old voice, Sengoku nodded helplessly. There is, my old friend. There is.